5 billion people watch football. Thousands of professional players compete at the highest level. But every generation produces a player who seems different, a player who doesn't simply score goals, a player who makes scoring goals look inevitable. For this generation, that player is Erling Haaland. Defenders know he's coming. They know where he wants to run. They know exactly what he's trying to do. And somehow, they still can't stop him. By his mid-20s, he had already broken Premier League records, dominated Germany, conquered Austria, won major trophies, and become one of the most feared strikers football has ever seen. But long before the records, long before the fame, there was simply a boy from Norway. This is the story of Erling Haaland. The story of how a young athlete became football's most efficient goal-scoring machine. Welcome to Never Ordinary. Extraordinary stories, one at a time. Erling Braut Haaland was born on July 21st, 2000. Not in Norway, not in Germany, not in England's football capital, but in the city of Leeds. His father, Erling Haaland, was a professional footballer, a tough, hard-working midfielder who played in the Premier League. Football wasn't just something Erling watched. It surrounded him from the very beginning. When Erling's career moved on, the family returned to Norway. It was there that Erling would spend most of his childhood, a place of mountains, snow, hard work, and football. Unlike many future football stars, Haaland wasn't only talented with a ball, he was an extraordinary athlete, fast, explosive, powerful, even as a child. In fact, as a child, Haaland reportedly recorded remarkable long jump performances that hinted at elite athletic ability. Even then, his body was developing differently from most players his age. While other children dreamed about becoming football stars, Erling was quietly building the physical tools that would eventually terrify defenders around the world. Haaland joined local club Bryne. This was where the journey truly began. The facilities were modest. The crowds were small. But great careers rarely begin in grand stadiums. Coaches quickly noticed something unusual. Most young players relied on skill. Some relied on speed. Others relied on strength. Haaland had all three. As he grew older, his goal numbers continued to rise. Every season brought improvement, every season brought attention, and eventually bigger clubs began to notice. In 2017, Haaland joined Molde, a move that would accelerate everything. Because waiting for him, there was a man who understood strikers better than almost anyone, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Solskjaer had spent years learning the art of goal scoring at the highest level. Now he saw potential in a teenage striker from Norway, potential that could become something extraordinary. Training became more intense, movement improved, finishing improved, decision-making improved. The raw talent was becoming refined. And then came the goals, lots of them. Each match increased belief. Each goal increased expectations. Europe's scouts were paying attention now. The football world was beginning to ask an important question. Who exactly was Erling Haaland? And just how good could he become? The answer would arrive sooner than anyone expected, because his next destination would introduce him to the entire football world, a club in Austria, a stage called the Champions League, and the beginning of a global phenomenon. By 2018, Erling Haaland had outgrown Norwegian football. The next step was clear. If he wanted to become one of Europe's elite strikers, he needed a bigger stage. That stage would be Austria. Red Bull Salzburg had built a reputation for discovering and developing elite young talent. The club moved fast, played aggressively, and demanded goals. For Haaland, it was the perfect environment. At first, the move looked like another promising step. Nothing more, nothing less. Few people outside Austria realized they were about to witness the birth of football's next superstar. Then came the goals. And they didn't stop. Week after week, match after match. The numbers kept climbing. Defenders couldn't keep up. Goalkeepers couldn't react fast enough. But domestic football wasn't what changed everything. The real breakthrough came on Europe's biggest club stage, the UEFA Champions League. For most young players, the Champions League is intimidating. The pressure is overwhelming. The opponents are world-class. For Haaland, it became an opportunity. Almost immediately, Europe noticed something unusual. This wasn't a teenager surviving at the highest level. This was a teenager dominating it. Goals arrived against elite opposition. The spotlight grew brighter, and Haaland kept delivering. Analysts studied his game. Scouts filled notebooks. Fans searched his name online. One question echoed across Europe. Who was going to sign him first? The list of interested clubs grew longer every week. Manchester United, Juventus, Real Madrid, Barcelona. Some of the biggest names in football wanted the same player. Yet despite all the attention, the decision wasn't about fame. It wasn't about headlines. It wasn't even about money. It was about development. And that decision would take him to Germany. A league built for attacking football. A league built for goals. In January 2020, Borussia Dortmund won the race. One of Europe's most exciting clubs had secured one of football's most exciting talents. The expectations were enormous. Then came his debut. And within minutes, football fans around the world realized something special was happening. 23 minutes, 3 goals, a hat trick on debut. It felt unreal, but it was only the beginning. Every defender faced the same problem. He was too fast, too strong, too intelligent, and perhaps most importantly, too clinical. Most strikers need several chances to score. Haaland often needed one, sometimes less. His efficiency became almost machine-like. The Bundesliga became his playground. Week after week, he punished defensive mistakes. And eventually, defenders stopped making mistakes. Yet he still scored. His movement fascinated analysts. Unlike many strikers, Haaland didn't chase the ball. He hunted space, and space always appeared. By now, the conversation had changed. No longer was he one of football's best young players. He was becoming one of football's best players. Period. The goals continued in Germany. The goals continued in Europe. And with every season, the pressure increased. Because eventually another question emerged. Could he dominate the Premier League? Many believed England would be different. The defenders were stronger. The matches were faster. The pressure was greater. Some doubted whether even Haaland could maintain his incredible numbers. Those doubts wouldn't last long. Because waiting in England was one of football's greatest managers. One of football's greatest teams. And the most important move of Haaland's career. The machine was about to enter its most dangerous phase. For years, football fans debated a simple question. Could Erling Haaland dominate the Premier League? Some believed he would. Others weren't convinced. England had humbled great strikers before. The league was faster, more physical, less forgiving. But there was one club that believed Haaland was exactly what they needed, Manchester City, a team already dominating English football, a team coached by Pep Guardiola, a team creating more chances than anyone else in Europe. The combination seemed almost unfair. The most creative team in football, and one of the most ruthless finishers in the world. The football world watched closely, because if this partnership worked, records could fall. The adaptation period everyone expected never happened. From the very beginning, Haaland looked unstoppable. Goals arrived immediately, then more goals, then even more. Soon, people stopped asking whether he could succeed. They started asking how many records he would break. Week after week, he rewrote history. Single-season scoring records began to disappear. Long-standing benchmarks fell. Commentators struggled to find new ways to describe what they were witnessing. What made it even more remarkable was how simple his game looked. No unnecessary touches, no complicated tricks, no wasted movement, just perfect timing, perfect positioning, and devastating finishing. Analysts studied every run, every sprint, every goal. And they discovered something fascinating. Haaland wasn't simply reacting to the game, he was predicting it, scanning defenders, tracking passing lanes, calculating opportunities seconds before they appeared. To many fans, his physical power stood out first. But coaches saw something different. Decision-making, awareness, patience, the invisible skills that separate elite players from legends. As the season progressed, Manchester City's ambitions grew. Winning the league wasn't enough. Winning domestic trophies wasn't enough. There was one prize every player wanted, the UEFA Champions League. The competition that had introduced Haaland to the world years earlier was now the competition he wanted to conquer. The pressure was enormous. Every mistake mattered. Every goal mattered. Every moment mattered. Manchester City marched through Europe. The squad was loaded with talent, but Haaland remained at the center of attention. Defenders focused on him, managers built entire game plans around him, and still, he delivered. When the final whistle arrived at the end of the campaign, history had been made. League champions, domestic cup winners, European champions, a treble, one of football's rarest achievements. For many players, this would have been the peak, the ultimate destination. But Haaland was still young, still improving, still hungry. The records kept coming, the goals kept coming, the expectations kept rising. And somewhere beyond club football, another challenge was waiting, one that every great player dreams about: the FIFA World Cup. For years, Norway had watched football's biggest tournament from afar. Now, led by Erling Haaland, that was changing. A nation was returning. And its greatest footballing star was ready to lead the way. For years, football fans imagined what Erling Haaland would look like on the biggest stage in sports: the FIFA World Cup, the tournament where legends are made, the tournament where careers are remembered forever. And in 2026, that moment finally arrived. For Norway, qualification meant more than a football achievement. It was a return to football's grandest stage after decades of waiting. An entire nation believed once again. And leading that belief was Erling Haaland. Pressure followed him everywhere, not because people doubted him, but because expectations had become enormous. By now, Haaland wasn't simply Norway's biggest star, he was one of football's biggest stars. Then came the opening match. Years of waiting, years of preparation, years of expectation. 90 minutes to introduce himself to the World Cup. The result was immediate. The moment wasn't too big. The pressure wasn't too heavy. The occasion wasn't overwhelming. Instead, Haaland looked exactly like Haaland. Clinical, powerful, relentless. Goals followed, then more goals. On football's biggest stage, Haaland was doing what he had always done: finding space, finishing chances, punishing mistakes. After 2 group stage matches, Haaland had already announced himself to the tournament. 4 goals, 2 matches, a dream start, and suddenly Norway looked dangerous. Across social media, television studios, and football podcasts, the conversation became impossible to ignore. Could Haaland carry Norway deep into the tournament? Could this become the defining chapter of his career? As this story reaches its conclusion, Erling Haaland's career does not. The next goal is still waiting. The next trophy is still waiting. The next challenge is still waiting. And somewhere ahead, perhaps the greatest chapter of all remains unwritten. The boy from Norway became a global superstar. The prospect became a phenomenon. The striker became a machine. And now, with the World Cup unfolding and football history still being written, the question is no longer whether Erling Haaland is one of the best players in the world. The question is, how high can he climb? How many records can he break? And when the final chapter is eventually written, where will he stand among football's immortals? Because for Erling Haaland, the story is far from over. Thank you for watching Never Ordinary. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves great stories.